Would you rather be rich and miserable or poor and fulfilled? Actually, scratch that. Most of you are already poor and miserable, so let's talk about why you're pretending to have a soul while you're sweating in a neon-colored desert for a Coachella Instagram post. Why are you so addicted to the performance of being happy that you've forgotten how to actually exist? You spend $4,000 on a VIP pass and a floral headband just to stand in a dusty field, breathing in recycled air and looking through your camera lens at a stage you can't even see. Also, you can prove to a bunch of strangers that you were there. You weren't there. You were a prop in your own life. You're a fraud, chasing a vibe that doesn't exist, terrified that if you stop posing for 5 seconds, you will have to confront the fact that you're as empty as the overpriced water bottle you just threw on the ground. Are you ever going to stop being a spectator and actually start living, or are you just waiting for the next trend to tell you who to be? Today, we're dissecting Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey. Now, don't start whining that this is just another Hollywood actor's vanity project. Sit down and shut up. This isn't a book of advice from a guy who's had it easy. McConaughey, the guy who won an Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club and became a minister of culture, spent 35 years keeping diaries before exiling himself in the desert for 52 days without electricity just to see if he could stand the man he'd become. He calls it an approach book, a record of his sights and scenes, felt and figured outs. It's about catching green lights, those moments where the world says yes, but it's mostly about realizing that the red and yellow lights are actually the ones that force you to evolve. Disclaimer: this audio summary is created for educational and transformative purposes only. It constitutes a fair use of the original source material under Section 107 of the US Copyright Act. If you're tired of your own pathetic excuses and want to learn how to actually pilot your life instead of just drifting like a piece of Coachella confetti, you need to hear this. But honestly, if you want the full, raw Texas swagger experience, go buy the book. You owe it to yourself to read the book before you try to mimic the results. Stop. Seriously, just stop for a second. If you died right now, what would your eulogy actually say? Would it be a collection of I meant to's and I almost? Or would it be a record of a life actually lived? Most of you are 60% through your journey and you're still waiting for a narrator to show up and tell you what the plot is. You're sleepwalking through a life you didn't even bother to script, and you have the audacity to wonder why you feel like a supporting character in your own story. Matthew McConaughey didn't just wake up one day with an Oscar and a sense of purpose. He's been in this life for over 50 years, trying to work out its riddle for 42. And here is the part that should make you feel like a lazy fraud. He's been keeping diaries of the clues for the last 35. While you were busy curating a fake life for people who don't like you, he was recording his cools and shamefuls, his graces and beauties of brutality. He didn't write things down to remember. He wrote them down so he could forget, to get the mental clutter onto the page so he could actually move forward without tripping over his own ego. Are you brave enough to spend even an hour alone with your own thoughts? McConaughey took 35 years of his journals and exiled himself in the desert for 52 days. No electricity, no internet, no noise, just to see if he could stand his own company. He realized he enjoyed himself more than he expected, but I bet most of you would start itching for a phone notification within 10 minutes. This isn't a traditional memoir full of nostalgia, it's an approach book, a playbook for the science of satisfaction. McConaughey has earned his scars in the rodeo of humanity, and he's not interested in preaching to you. He's had 78 stitches sewn into his forehead by a veterinarian, and he's been bongoed naked until the cops hauled him off. He knows that truth is only offensive when we're lying, yet you spend your whole day lying to yourself about why you aren't where you want to be. He sees life as a singular procession, a verb. Your life is your resume on the way to your eulogy. You better start writing it with intention, or someone else will write it for you. And trust me, you won't like their version. But if you're going to start writing that resume, you first have to learn how to read the road you're actually on, which brings us to the signals you've been choosing to ignore. So, you've woken up. Great. Now you're standing on the autobahn of life, staring at the traffic and wondering why everyone else seems to be moving while you're stuck at a red light. You think a green light is just a lucky break, a shoeless summer of cash, health, and praise. You love those. They're easy. They don't require a spine. But here is the outlaw logic you're too soft to grasp. The red and yellow lights are actually green lights in disguise. A red light is a full stop. It's failure. It's sickness. It's a slap in the face. It's death. To you, a red light is a reason to quit and play the victim. To McConaughey, it's a thoughtful pause, a moment that gives you exactly what you need, even if it isn't what you want. Every destruction eventually leads to construction, and every pain eventually leads to pleasure, but you're too busy crying about the shoeless winter of your current circumstances to see the blessing in the rearview mirror. Catching green lights isn't a game of luck, it's a skill that requires intent, resilience, and speed. You can actually engineer them. You can design your future so that you hit fewer red lights by simply identifying the ones you keep running into because of your own stupidity. It's called getting relative with the inevitable. When the outcome is inevitable, how you deal with it is your only leverage. You have three choices when the world says no: persist, pivot, or concede. You persist when your direction is true, but the timing is off. You pivot when a red light is telling you that you're in the wrong lane entirely. And you concede when you realize you're fighting a fate that was never yours to win. The secret to satisfaction is knowing which one to do and when. Stop waiting for the universe to hand you a permission slip to move forward. The signals are already there, landing like butterflies, quick and quiet. But you're so loud, so entitled, and so distracted by your own bullshit that you can't hear the background signals of your own soul. You want a life of nothing but green lights? McConaughey asks, what the hell would it all be for? We need the yellows and the reds to evolve. If you can't handle the shadows, you don't deserve the light. Are you ready to stop being a rat, a fink, and a coward, and finally start navigating the beautiful chaos of your own becoming? Let's talk about your trauma for a second. Most of you would be checking into a wellness retreat for a month if your parents forgot your gluten-free birthday cake. You're soft, pampered, and terrified of a little friction. Matthew McConaughey? He grew up in a household where love was bloody sometimes, but never in question. Picture this. It's a Wednesday night in 1974. A 265-pound bear of a man, Matthew's dad, is sitting at the table in a greasy undershirt, just trying to eat his reheated potatoes. His mom, Kay, decides to start yapping, calling him fat man over and over until, boom, the dining table is flipped into the ceiling. What follows is a standoff involving a 12-inch chef's knife, a bottle of Heinz ketchup used like a matador's cape, and a broken nose. Most of you would call that a crime scene. McConaughey calls it communication because 5 minutes later, they were making love on the ketchup-stained floor. That is outlaw logic. It's the philosophy that you follow the rules until you're man enough to break them. His parents didn't hope he'd have values. They beated them into him because it got his attention faster than a timeout ever would. But here's the part you'll hate. He was taught that you don't get in trouble for the act. You get in trouble for getting caught, and even worse, for lying about it. When he was 10, he got whipped until his butt bled for putting on a Cracker Jack tattoo. Why? Because he was representing something he hadn't earned. He was a 10-year-old poser. Sound like anyone you know? Then there's the pizza incident. He tried to hustle his dad by lying about stealing a pizza. His dad gave him a chance to come clean, but Matthew doubled down on the lie. The result? His father walloped him so hard he hit the ground crying and actually pissed his pants. His dad wasn't mad about the pizza. He'd stolen plenty of pizzas. He was mad that his son was a rat, a fink, and a coward who wouldn't look him in the eye and admit he'd fucked up. McConaughey learned early that truth is only offensive when we're lying. He even tried to sue a skin cream company for giving him acne, claiming emotional distress. He was ready to win $50,000 until the defense attorney pulled out his high school yearbook and showed he'd won most handsome while he supposedly had the guises of pus on his face. He'd outfoxed himself. He tried to play the victim and got caught in his own vanity. The lesson for you? Stop trying to be a victim of your chaos. McConaughey says he's never felt like a victim because he chooses to see the silver lining even in the beauties of brutality. You can either get relative and learn to work the system, or you can keep crying about the rules that were never meant to protect cowards anyway. Because once you stop lying about who you are, you might actually start to hear the frequency you're supposed to be on. So, you've survived the chaos. You've stopped being a think. Now comes the part where most of you fail, finding your frequency in a world that is screaming at you to be someone else. In high school, McConaughey was the king. He had the straight A's, the most handsome title, and a truck with a megaphone in the grill so he could tell the girls they were looking good from 100 yards away. He had mojo, he was involved, but then he got cool. He traded his truck for a candy red Nissan 300ZX with T-tops and started parking in the back lot just so he could lean against it and look effortless. Guess what? The girls stopped digging him. They went mudding in other guys' trucks while he was busy looking in the mirror at his own hair. He had become a spectator in his own life. He had to trade the sports car back for the truck to get his mojo back. He realized that identity isn't about knowing who you are. It's about the process of elimination, knowing who you aren't. But the real test came when he went to Australia as an exchange student. He thought he was going to live the dream in a cityfied coastal town. Instead, he ended up in Warnervale, population 305, living with the Dooleys. A family that was, and I'm putting this lightly, absolutely batshit crazy. The dad, Norvell, sat on a high chair on a platform so he could look down on Matthew while banning him from having opinions for the masses. The mom, Marjorie, shrieked at 6 a.m. because Matthew wouldn't call her mum. McConaughey spent a year eating a head of iceberg lettuce with ketchup for dinner, running 6 miles a day until he hit 140 pounds, and writing 16-page letters to himself because he was trapped in a twilight zone of cultural insanity. He could have quit. He could have signed the contract to go home early, but he didn't. He stayed for the duration because he believed there was a lesson in the hell. He learned that we need borders, gravity, and resistance to have order. He finally lost it when Norval tried to force him to stay, and Matthew sent a left hook through a plywood door. The kicker? At his farewell party, his other Australian friends finally admitted they knew the Dooleys were out of their bloody minds all along. They let him suffer just to see if he'd break. McConaughey realized that you cannot fully appreciate the light without the shadows. You have to be thrown off balance to find your footing. Most of you are so busy trying to find a vibe that you're avoiding the very resistance that would actually define you. You want a life of easy green lights, but you're just becoming a dried shit that has no scent and no legacy. If you want to find your frequency, you have to be willing to walk through the desert, punch through the door, and realize that a roof is a man-made thing. Your potential is only limited by your own cowardly need for comfort. You ever feel like you're just driving in circles? Like the universe took your GPS, threw it out the window, and left you on a dirt road in the middle of a thunderstorm? You call it a setback. You call it bad luck. You probably sit in your parked car and cry about how life isn't fair. Let me tell you something. The road less traveled isn't always a quiet dirt path. Sometimes the road less traveled is the 16-lane autobahn that you're too terrified to merge onto. McConaughey's entire journey is proof that the detours are actually the destination. Look at his college transition. He was the most handsome guy with the straight A's and the hot girlfriends. He wanted to go to Southern Methodist University, SMU, to be a big shot lawyer. But then he found out his dad, the 265-pound bear, was actually broke and struggling to pay the bills. Did he throw a tantrum? No. He used outlaw logic. He pivot steered himself into the University of Texas because it was cheaper, and he never told his dad the real reason why, just so his old man could keep his pride. And then comes the moment where most of you would have choked. He's a sophomore. Finals are looming. He's supposed to be studying psychology, but his brain is itchy. He's writing stories in his journal. He's feeling like law school is a preparation for a life he doesn't even want to live. Most of you would have just sucked it up, gotten the degree, and spent the next 40 years being a miserable rat in a suit. But then, a book finds him. The greatest salesman in the world. He reads the first scroll. I will form good habits and become their slave. He realizes the habit he needs to break is lying to himself. He decides he wants film school. Now, picture this. He has to call his blood and ketchup father and tell him he's ditching the stable law career to become an artsy storyteller. He calls at 7:30 p.m., the time of the first cocktail, the time of relaxed defenses. He tells him, and his dad says the 4 words that should be tattooed on your forehead. Don't half-ass it. That is a green light. But it only happened because he was willing to get off the paved road and drive into the mud. You're so scared of a little dirt on your tires that you're idling in the driveway of a life you hate. You're waiting for a sign. This is it. Stop being a spectator. If you don't start steering, the road is going to eat you alive. Because once you actually start driving, you might find that the road starts running downhill. And that's when you have to learn the hardest lesson of all, how to actually let it be easy. Most of you have a suffering complex. You think that if something isn't exhausting, it isn't valuable. You hit a green light, a moment where things are actually working, and you immediately start looking for a way to sabotage it because you don't think you deserve the win. McConaughey calls this the art of running downhill. It's about not tripping yourself when gravity is finally on your side. Take his big break in Dazed and Confused. He met a producer in a hotel bar, drank way too many vodka tonics, got kicked out, and ended up smoking a joint in a cab with the guy. He didn't hustle for the role. He was the guy. He showed up to the audition, put on his Wooderson eyelids, and the role was his. But then, life threw a red light that would have leveled most of you. 5 days into filming, his dad died. The immovable snowman, the Viking strength bull, was gone, dying exactly how he said he would, making love to Matthew's mom. It was a seminal rite of passage. No more safety net, no one above the law looking after him anymore. He could have quit. He could have played the victim. Instead, he went back to the set 4 days later and channeled that grief into a scene that birthed the just keep living philosophy. He realized that life is a verb. It's a singular procession, and then comes Hollywood. He arrives in a U-Haul, listening to LA Woman on a loop, thinking he's reached the legendary Sunset Boulevard, only to realize he's 162 miles away on Sunset Drive. He sleeps on a couch. He gets told by his mentor, Don Phillips, that he smells needy and needs to get the hell out of town if he wants a career. So what does he do? He goes on a motorcycle trip across Europe with his buddies. They have almost no money. They rent 3 brand new bikes from a guy named Johan for the price of a 3-day rental. One of them totals a bike doing 120 miles per hour. Does Johan sue them? No. He brings them another new bike because he wants them to have the adventure he had as a young man. That is running downhill. That is the universe conspiring for your happiness when you stop trying to force the result. But then McConaughey gets arrogant. He thinks he's so natural that he doesn't need to read scripts. He shows up for a movie called Scorpion Spring and finds out his monologue is 4 pages of Spanish, and he doesn't speak Spanish. He gets humbled. He learns that preparation is the only way to have true freedom. He applies that lesson to A Time to Kill. He walks into the director's office, looks him dead in the eye, and tells him he should be the lead, not the supporting villain. He didn't ask. He owned it. The lesson for you? Stop fighting the flow. When the green light is there, hit the gas. Stop questioning why you're successful and start being involved in it. If you're too busy looking at the finish line, you're going to choke. Run through the goal line, because if you don't learn how to handle the shoeless summer of success, you'll never survive the winter that's inevitably coming. So you've learned to run downhill. You've tasted the shoeless summer of success. But here's what no one tells you. Sometimes success is a golden cage. You get so good at playing a certain part that the world stops letting you be anything else. Most of you are currently stuck in a chapter of your life that you absolutely hate, but you're too cowardly to turn the page because you're addicted to the predictable paycheck of your own misery. Matthew McConaughey reached that point in 1999. He was the rom-com king. He was bankable. He was shirtless on the beach guy. He was making millions skipping from cloud to cloud in movies like The Wedding Planner and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. But internally, he was waking up with a stinky finger. The roles didn't challenge him anymore. He could read the script today and play the part tomorrow. He had become an entertainer, not an actor. And then came the Bongo Naked incident. It's October 23rd, 1999. The Texas Longhorns just beat Nebraska. Matthew is back at his house in Austin, celebrating with a one-hitter and some handmade percussion. Suddenly, the Cornhusker cops burst in. He's tackled, body slammed, and hauled off to jail buck naked. You'd call that a PR disaster. He saw it as a signal that fame had changed his anonymity into a tourist attraction. He realized he needed to unbrand. He needed to find out who Matthew was when the cameras weren't rolling. When you chase, you're telling the universe that what you want is away from you. McConaughey's Part 6 philosophy is a slap in the face to your desperate hustle. The arrow doesn't seek the target draws the arrow. By 2006, Matthew was done chasing the one. He had dated great women, but they were all stops, no stays. He had a dream, another wet one, where he was an 88-year-old bachelor on a porch, surrounded by 88 children from 22 different mothers. In the dream, he was at peace. He realized that his sole objective was to be a father, and if marriage never happened, he was okay with it. The second he conceded to the universe and stopped looking for her, she appeared. He's at the Hyde Club on Sunset, he's making margaritas, and he sees her, Camilla, floating across the room in a turquoise dress like a mermaid from the Amazon. His first instinct? Wave her over like a show pony, but he hears his mother's voice in his ear. This is not the type of woman you wave over. Get your ass up and go introduce yourself. He didn't hustle her. He didn't use a pickup line. He spoke Portuguese, a language he didn't even know he knew because he was on the frequency. He invited her back for a drink, and when her car was towed and the cabs weren't running, he feigned concern and gave her the guest bedroom. He tried to sneak in twice. She kicked him out both times. She wasn't for rent, and she wasn't impressed. That is alignment. He had eliminated the options that didn't feed him. He shut down his production company and his music label because he was making B's in 5 things instead of A's in 3. He simplified his life to family, foundation, and acting for hire. The lesson for you? Stop forcing your life to happen. You're trying to meditate the world to sleep, but you're forgetting to cock your gun. You're a grifter of your own potential. You want the most handsome title without the acne of the effort. When Levi was born in 2008, Matthew realized that man is never more masculine than after the birth of his first child. His head, heart, and gut were finally aligned. He stopped leaving crumbs. He moved his family back to Texas because he wanted his kids to grow up with common sense and neighbors instead of paparazzi. You're terrified of losing yourself, just like Matthew was before he got married. But he learned that 1 times 1 doesn't equal 1. In a covenant with God and your spouse, 1 times 1 equals 3. You become more of yourself, not less. Are you brave enough to reach between your legs and grab your pair and commit to the life you actually want? Or are you going to keep waving from across the bar at a destiny that is never going to come to you because you're too damn scared to walk over and claim it? You ever wonder why you're so mediocre? It's because you're terrified of a no. You're addicted to the participation trophy of your own comfort zone. Matthew McConaughey reached the top of the rom-com mountain and then he realized he hated the view. He was making millions to skip from cloud to cloud, but he was waking up with a stinky finger every morning because he was an entertainer, not an actor. So he did the one thing you'd never have the balls to do. He quit. He told Hollywood, his mistress of 20 years, that they needed a break. He told his agent, no more rom-coms, and then came the ultimate test of his outlaw logic. He was offered $14.5 million for a script he'd already passed on. Most of you would sell your soul for a fraction of that. He read it again, saw it was still the same word salad, and he said no again. Then came the red light. The industry didn't just respect his decision, they forgot him. He went 20 months without a single job offer. For 20 months, he was out of sight, out of mind. He was at home in Texas, raising his kids, gardening, and wondering if he'd just committed career suicide. But that anonymity bred creativity. Because he was willing to let the old version of himself die, the right roles, the Lincoln lawyer, Killer Joe, Mud, finally started to find him. The lesson for you? Stop chasing what doesn't feed your soul. You're trying to meditate the world to sleep without ever cocking your gun. You want the most handsome title without the acne of the effort. If you want to take the hill, you have to be man enough to admit you're scared and then climb the damn thing anyway, because once you stop being a rat, a fink, and a coward, you might actually start building something that outlasts you. Most of you are waiting for your legacy to start. You think it's something people say about you at your funeral while they're checking their watches and wondering when the catering starts. You're wrong. Your legacy is being built right now in every green light you engineer and every red light you choose to respect. McConaughey learned that your life is your resume on the way to your eulogy. It's a singular procession, a verb, not a noun. You're still waiting, aren't you? Waiting for that magical day when your true self finally emerges from the pile of laundry and the lukewarm coffee of your mediocre existence. You think legacy is some dusty plaque they screw into a wall after you're dead. Newsflash. You aren't a statue waiting to be uncovered. You are the chisel hitting the stone every damn second, and right now you're carving a monument to almost tried. Stop acting like your life is a dress rehearsal for a play that's never going to open. Matthew McConaughey hit a point in his career where he realized he had flipped the script in the worst way possible. He was more alive in his movies than he was in his actual life. He was getting more growth from a fictional character's journey than from the one he was supposedly living. He realized he was becoming a voyeur of his own moments because he was more impressed with his success than involved in it. He had to get rid of the filters and decide to be his own biography, a living, breathing documentary where the approach is the destination. Are you brave enough to take inventory of your own investment? McConaughey took 35 years of his journals to desolate places, the desert, the river, a cabin in the woods, just to look himself in the eye and see if he liked his own company. He realized that while realizations happen fast, the living is the hardest part. Most of you are terrified of commitment because you think it's a cage. You think marriage or parenthood is where your cool goes to die. But McConaughey learned from his pastor that in a true covenant, 1 times 1 doesn't equal 1, it equals 3. You don't lose half of yourself, you triple your existence through a mystical multiplication of husband, wife, and God. He realized that while living together is for the present, marriage is for the future. He stopped chasing butterflies and started planting a garden so the butterflies would come to him. Your legacy is your resume on the way to your eulogy. It's built in the voluntary obligations, the you versus you secrets that define your character when there are no cops around to police you. It's about being man enough to own your mistakes, turn the page, and get off the merry-go-round of your own bad habits. McConaughey found a list of 10 goals in life he wrote in 1992, just 2 days after finishing Dazed and Confused. Goal number 1, become a father. Goal number 10, just keep living. He realized that we don't live longer by trying not to die. We live longer by being too damn busy living. So stop being a rat, a fink, and a coward. Quit half-assing it and start getting relative with the inevitable. The world is flat and it's staring you right in the eyes. Are you going to keep blinking or are you going to finally catch a green light?